talking about Inside Llweyn Davis, a 2013 film directed by Joel and Ethan Coen, starring Oscar Isaac, Carey Mulligan, Garrett Hedlund, Justin Timberlake, and John Goodman. The film tells the story of Llweyn Davis, a young folk singer in early 1960s New York, specifically Greenwich Village, who's trying to make his career work after an underwhelming debut album and the recent loss of his partner and the sort of strange and bizarre misadventures that he encounters along the way, usually not very good for him, usually resulting in misfortune. So, what did you think of Inside Llweyn Davis?
I really like this movie. Knowing our background with music and just seeing how the world actually works and seeing this as a representation of how hard it is to even get into the music industry. It's something that's heartfelt, even though it can be a little sad sometimes, specifically for Llweyn Davis. It's got such a great cast of characters that maybe you've met some of them, maybe you've heard about others, but everybody has something to give. And
maybe you are one of them. Maybe you're the bum crashing on everyone's couch, you know? We've all been there.
So.
But yeah, like in regards to the music scene, like obviously it's a different place and time, like a very specific place and time with the folk music scene, and right before Dylan kind of really broke big and completely changed the face of the scene at that time. But yeah, like it really kind of presents an sort of de-romanticized and brutally honest look at being a struggling musician and the kind of poverty and the struggle and the hopelessness that can go along with that when you're not really getting attention or when things don't really pan out the way you hoped. But apparently the film was actually criticized by some people because the character of Llweyn Davis himself is based on a real-life folk singer named Dave Van Ronk, I think, and like it's a very sort of like minor thing. Like they just use Dave Van Ronk's story as kind of a launching point for the story. The character of Llweyn's not really based on him, but some people that knew Dave Van Ronk and were part of the music scene at that time actually criticized the film because they thought it presented it as too dismal, too depressing. Like, you know, apparently the scene was more lively than that and more, you know, fun and communal, but I don't really think that was the point of the movie. Like, I don't think the Coen brothers were, you know, trying to make a statement about folk music in general. They were really just trying to depict, like, the life of a struggling musician. And, like, yeah, I'm sure it was a fun scene, but there were probably also a lot of people who didn't make it and who did struggle and who ended up bitter and disillusioned, and I think Llweyn kind of represents those people.
Oscar Isaac in this role, man, he disappears into it. It's not the guy from Star Wars, Dune, or any other type of movie you've seen. This is true Llweyn Davis.
Well, it's interesting because this was kind of his breakout role. Like, he'd done some work before this, like notably in Drive and stuff like that, but this was the first time I became really aware of him. I think it was his first big starring role, and yeah, like he really showed the world what he was capable of, and it's almost weird to look back because now he's become more of a household name, and you know, obviously playing Poe Dameron in Star Wars and in Dune and all that, he's almost come to be recognized playing a certain kind of role as, like, you know, a badass or kind of suave guy. But in this movie, he's really more of just a cynical, down on his luck, burnt out guy. And the character of Llweyn himself is sort of interesting because on one hand, like, yeah, he's kind of a dick. Like, you know, he's kind of selfish. He acts like a jerk sometimes, and he's called out for this behavior by a lot of people. But, like, I think the thing that sort of saves him from being completely unlikable is he's aware of his own flaws, and he doesn't seem to, like, you know, I don't think he means harm. He's more just, you know, careless and self-absorbed than anything, and it's a really kind of real performance, you know, real kind of depiction of that kind of person. Mm-hmm. And Oscar Isaac really plays it fantastically, and we get a pretty great cast of supporting actors as well, some who just drop in but give us nice, memorable performances. Like, one that would really stand out would be Adam Driver, who only appears, like, briefly in a few scenes, but it's funny because later, of course, he would go on to play Kylo Ren opposite Oscar Isaac, except, you know, them being enemies in Star Wars, so that's a fun little fun little Easter egg to look back on for you Star Wars fans. But also actors like Justin Timberlake, who does a surprisingly good job playing the kind of like almost like like the successful positive guy, like the guy that Llweyn isn't, basically, like almost like his rival in a sense. And probably like the standout performance in the film would go to John Goodman, who appears in a brief segment of the film, but gives a really amazing, memorable, hilarious performance. And also Garrett Hedlund, who's in that scene playing a really kind of quiet, enigmatic sort of beat poet character. Like, that's the interesting thing about the film. It, like, even the Coens admitted this, it doesn't really have like a clear like through line in terms of a plot. It's really sort of just scattered episodes. Like, there is a bit of a plot in it, but it's more just about these weird kind of almost darkly comic things that Llweyn finds himself involved in, and that's where the film shines the most. Like, I think the cross-country trip they take to Chicago is my favorite part of the film.
Yeah, easily one of the best scenes or segments in the movie. And all this started just because he basically lost where he was crashing on somebody's couch already. He lost their cat, or most likely he locked the cat out by accident, and he's basically traveling with this cat throughout the duration of the movie. And there's of course a bait and switch and stuff.
Yeah, the cat plays like a surprisingly involved role, and on a personal level, that's kind of why I wanted to watch and review this movie. My cat Butters died recently, so I wanted to watch a movie that had a cat in it. So, but yeah, I like the role of the cat, and like, some people have speculated that maybe the cat represents Llweyn himself, kind of, just wandering about in the world, not really having, like, because, the cat is lost for a long period and it takes him a while. But, there's also allusions to the Odyssey with the cat being named Ulysses and things like that. So it might just be, like, a fun little clever plot that they threw in there. Like, a lot of people have speculated on the meaning of the cat. And knowing the Coens, it could be really meaningful, or it could be nothing. Like, knowing them, it could have just been, like, a fun thing they threw in. But, yeah, like, the film has a surprising amount of, like, poignancy and depth amidst all of its sort of comedy. Like, even if you're not a musician or things like that, there's still a lot of relatable situations of, just facing a time in your life where everything seems to be going poorly, and you're really wondering, what should I do next? Like, should I keep going in this direction? Should I try something else? And that's like really kind of almost the existential tragedy of Llweyn, as he's realizing that his career is not going very well, so he tries to go back to the Merchant Marines where he previously worked, but he can't because he lost his license, and he puts the last of his money into this, and like everything he does, he just screws himself more. At one point, he has an opportunity to make money off like a novelty song he records, but since he takes the quick check instead of waiting for the royalties, he gets nothing out of it. Like, again, like a self-destructive character, but almost in like a thoughtless way. Like, he's not like a drug addict or anything like that. He just doesn't think very far ahead.
Yeah, and that's something else, like a recurring theme you could say in the movie, because I've noticed some people talking about the future and where things are headed, and even at one point somebody asked Llweyn,
yeah, Carey Mulligan's character.
Yeah, what do you think about the future? Do you ever think ahead? And it's just, this movie just kind of shows to you again, like you said,
he's not really thinking about it. Yeah,
so that's what I really liked about the movie, because there are a lot of aspects I can kind of relate to with Llweyn. There's some that I can't, because I've never really done that, but just the fact that, again, like you said, he's an unlikable, likable guy that always is on the very edge of just losing it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about him. Like, he's not like an evil person. He's just, kind of a dick, like in a realistic way. A lot of us are like that, especially when we go through tough times in our lives. We can be thoughtless, we can be self-centered, and yeah, again, Carey Mulligan's character we haven't really spoken about. She plays she's the girlfriend of Jim, Justin Timberlake's character, and I guess she must have had like a one-night stand or an affair with Llweyn, because she winds up pregnant and she thinks it might be his kid, so he winds up kind of caught in a situation where he has to provide money for an abortion, and that also leads him, like, he was previously involved with another woman who had an abortion, or so he thought, and she might actually have his kid out there. So we also get like an idea his relationships with women are not great, and Carey Mulligan's character Jane especially calls him out for it a lot.
Yeah.
Although at the same time, like, you could make the argument that she's a bit hypocritical because she slept with him voluntarily, I assume. And also, like, later on we find out that she slept with, like, the manager of the place too. So, if you're going out there sleeping with a lot of dudes, things can happen. I'm just saying, like. But, I guess it was part of the spirit of the time too. Like, it wasn't quite like the hippie era yet. It was more like the tail end of the beat folk era, kind of like the 50s stuff. But people were beginning to like experiment and live like looser lifestyles and stuff. So that's another great thing about the film. It represents kind of a transitional moment.
Yeah, and this man is basically stuck between the past and the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly where he's gonna go,
Yeah, and at the very end we see like the emergence of Bob Dylan, which again, like I said, going to be changing the face of the folk industry, and you get the sense of like, where's a guy like Llweyn going to fit into that, really?
Yeah.
And yeah, on a technical level, the film is like really well made. Like, what can you say about the Coens at this point? They've learned their trade pretty aptly, and like obviously it's not going to be like as sharp as detailed or something like No Country for Old Men, which was a really kind of dynamic and suspenseful film. This one has a more laid back, laconic pace, but there's also some like nifty little moments, some great little visual moments, like when he's riding on the subway with the cat and the cat's looking out the window. Like, again, like something most filmmakers wouldn't think of doing. Like, we're just going to focus on the cat's point of view here. Like, it's
basically showing just New York itself is a character in this movie.
Yeah.
Where
specifically Greenwich Village, the little area where all the folk musicians are.
Exactly. And also to talk about the music being played in this movie, Oscar Isaac has a really awesome voice.
Yeah.
That, he really takes you there, whatever he's saying about. One of my favorite songs is Fare Thee Well. And he only plays it twice in the movie, but each time it's like a very poignant, very important song.
Because that song has symbolism. It has like meaning within the story too, because it's a song he recorded with his partner who died due to suicide, which adds like another dark dimension to the film. Like, so yeah, like he only plays that song, and at one point he's kind of pressured into playing it, and he gets angry and says, no, I don't want to do it, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, the music is really amazing. All the actors apparently did like the music live. They actually performed and sang. Obviously Justin Timberlake, he has history with that sort of thing, but even the other actors like Oscar Isaac and Carey Mulligan and Adam Driver also rose to the occasion and performed. And yeah, pretty fantastic all around. Like, it really brings you into that vibe. Nice, sweet old folk melodies. As Llweyn says, if it was never new and it never gets old, then it's a folk song.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of my favorite like Coen Brothers movies. It's a bit low key, compared to some of their bigger works. Like obviously Fargo and No Country for Old Men are the big critical darlings, and you've got movies like The Big Lebowski, which has become a huge like cult comedy film for people. But I think this is one of their strongest and most subtle like little films, and like the comedy and the drama are handled really deftly and well, and it never really pushes either way over the line. And yeah, it's a film that you can relate to. It's a film that touches you and makes you laugh and makes you think, all that good stuff.
So my overall rating for this movie would be a 4 out of 5.
I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 myself. I truly love this movie. I feel like I'm being too generous lately, giving too many 5s out, but hey, there are some great movies out there, and I truly believe this is one of them.
Yeah, so this has been Film on High Reviews.
Yeah, rest in peace, Butters.
Rest in peace.